Black Widow due to arrive in theaters this November, supposedly. I think it's time that I rank all the 23 MCU films from worst to best. This is my personal list. These are films that I thought that was a trend over the years. Now, there are a lot of pieces on this list. It was hard to come up with a list like this because there are a lot of great films in the MCU. But this is my personal opinion. I think you'll like this list. Once again, here's my top 23 MCU films ranked from worst to best. At the number 23 spot is the film The Incredible Hulk. While I enjoyed the action and some aspects of this film, this movie is largely underwhelming. The poor performance of Edward Norton, Liv Tyler, and Tim Blake Nelson. And let's not forget one of her as Thunderbolt Ross. This film is largely the forgotten film in the MCU, especially of Phase 1. It made less than $300 million at the box office. It was poorly received by a lot of people. And as a Hulk fan, I think they could have did this movie a lot better. Especially considering we ain't had any Hulk films since this one. It's not because of the distribution rights. A lot of people Hulk works better in team-up films, but I digress. Nonetheless, this film is largely interesting to me. I didn't really care for it first time I saw it. And over the years, I think that it's a movie that is largely just boring to me. And not only that, Mark Ruffalo ended up taking the role for the 2012 Avengers film anyway, so there's that. Coming in at 22 is Thor. While I enjoyed some things about this film, this movie is largely just boring to me. Chris Hemsworth was perfectly cast as Thor, but everybody else is downright terrible. Notwithstanding Tom Hiddleston, he was great. I meant to say him as Loki is like one of the best things about this film. But everybody else, Natalie Portman, Kat Dennings, they were terrible in the film. This film took place on Earth. It is my least likely Thor film. The only reason it's rated higher than the first Hulk movie is because at least they tried something here to miss results. There are some people that downright despise the movie. And me being one of them, it's like easily one of the most forgettable films of Thor. And this film could have been a lot better. Iron Man 2 comes in at the number 21 spot. And while this film has a whole list of problems, the main thing I like about this movie is just it's inferior to the first film. Robert Downey Jr. does an amazing job as always in this movie. The visual effects was good, the action sequences, but what really is a problem here, this movie took a step back. Yes, the movie is mixed. It could have been a lot better. They ain't made this film as great as it could have been. Plus, this is only like the third MCU film at the time this movie came out. Is it bad? Yes, but it's not like the worst. I think there are some generally good things about this, especially the debut of Black Widow. So, this film, while not the worst, is still considered bad in my opinion. At the number 20 spot is the 2015 film Ant-Man. The reason I got this so on the list, I didn't really ever care about this film. Yes, it does a lot of good things well. It's just that it was clearly underwhelming to me. I think this is like the weakest film in Phase 2 of the MCU. But at least it has some good things going for it, like the acting of Paul Rudd and Michael Douglas. Anthony Mackie makes an appearance as Falcon in a scene. But to me, this film was missing a lot from what the later films would follow. In other words, it's just a film that I didn't really care for all that much. And I thought it was just alright by my opinion. Coming in at number 19 is Thor: The Dark World. While this film is largely underwhelming in my opinion, it's just the mere fact that it doesn't do a whole lot for me. Now, I did like this film. It's not as great as it could have been. And if it wasn't for Chris Hemsworth, Tom Hiddleston, this movie would have been even more forgettable. But unlike the other films previously on this list, this movie does some things well, like the action, the music. And if you see my review on this movie, you know how I feel about this film. But I think this is a better film somewhat compared to a first Thor film. Not by much, but this film, it's alright, but it's just not great at any stretch of the imagination. Man, at number 18 is Iron Man 3. Generally, I view this as one of the weaker movies of Phase 2, but that doesn't mean it's a downright disaster. There are some things I actually enjoy about this film. Robert Downey Jr. does another amazing job as Tony Stark. The action is good, the musical score was awesome, and the story was alright by me. I didn't like that Mandarin twist. You see, the Mandarin is a big villain in the comics, and they made him to a joke in this film. But you know what? It's alright because we're getting the real Mandarin in a future Marvel film anyway. But nonetheless, this film, while it's still weak compared to the other movies that will follow after this, it's not a downright disaster. There are some generally good times to be had with this film. Coming in at the number 17 spot is Captain America, the First Avenger. Who would ever thought Chris Evans, the guy who played Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four films, would end up playing one of the best things, the best heroes, I should say, in the MCU. This is a great film. The action, the music, the story. Steve Rogers not ever compromising for the man he is. You see, even before he got in the super soldier serum, he still was a courageous and brave hero, and his serum just made him best at everything else. There are some great moments in this film. I easily enjoyed this movie. It's one of the strong points of Phase 1, and it directly led into the Avengers, so that's why it's at the number 17 spot. At number 16 is Avengers Age of Ultron. While I consider this a decent film, it's obviously one of the weaker movies of the 4 Avengers films we've gotten so far. It's still a film that you can enjoy. Everyone from the first film returns. You have new characters such as Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, Ultron, who is completely underused in this film, I might say. But the action is on point. It's definitely a lot of good highlights throughout this film. The fighting was great, especially between Hulk and Iron Man. And it will lead into even better films after this. Do I think this film is kind of weak? Yeah, but I still enjoy this movie for what it is. They could have shored up the plot a little bit more, made Ultron a little bit more interesting. But I think this is a film that anybody who enjoyed the first Avengers movie can enjoy. Certainly, it could have been better, but it's a decent film in my opinion. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 comes in at the number 15 spot. While not as great as the first, this movie is very enjoyable. There are a lot of aspects about this film, such as the humor, the acting for everybody. The action was well done. The soundtrack is great as always. But despite all that, I have issues with this film, such as the story elements and what they did with Drax, turn them to like a joke. But this is a entertaining film I think anybody could enjoy. You don't even have to be a fan of the Marvel films. You could watch this pretty much with the entire family and still have a good time. Do I wish this film could have been better than what it was? Yeah, but that does not make it a bad film at all. This is a decent film in my opinion. At number 14 is Spider-Man Homecoming. Now I'm going to admit, when I first saw this film back in 2017, I didn't generally like it all that much, but it's kind of grown on me in the years since. You have Tom Holland playing Spider-Man, who's making his second appearance in this universe, and I have to say, he's probably the second best Spider-Man, and well, personally for me, the top being Andrew Garfield, but despite what this movie has, having Iron Man, having the Vulture, it's actually pretty well done. The Vulture was a very interesting villain. I like the acting in this film. The action was pretty good. The musical score was great as well, and it felt like a high school movie. Hey, this film was directed by John Watts, so this is like his specialty here. It's Spider-Man, but in high school. Now, personally, I wish they would have made Spider-Man, I don't know, like an adult, but this film is okay by me. It's alright. I enjoy this film. Though it's not the best Spider-Man film that would have been released in the MCU, I think that it was like somewhat of a step in the right direction. Man, number 13 is Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yes, I picked this film over Spider-Man Homecoming simply because I think it did a few things better than what that Spider-Man film did. There are larger stakes involved in this film. Everyone does a good job in this movie. The music is pretty great. And there's some well, let's just say there's some consequences at the end of the film. Plus, we learn a little bit more about the quantum realm. Once again, I'm not a big fan of Ant-Man, but I think this is an improvement of the original movie. It still has that quirky charm that the first Ant-Man film had, but where this film does better is exploring the backstory of one of the villains. Not the most interesting villain per se, but you get to learn more about, the villain that you end up becoming. But despite all that, Paul Rudd is just great as always as Ant-Man. And even Lily, hopefully say that right, playing Wasp, she gets a moment to shine in this film as well. Plus, there's also Michael Douglas, and he always great in the film. Nonetheless, though, this is a movie that I think even the most non-comic book person will like. At number 12 is Captain Marvel. While I originally thought this film wasn't as great as it could have been, I think it's an interesting chapter in the MCU because this movie came out 1 month before Avengers Endgame. So we're introduced to a brand new character that says a lot about her. I did like this film on several regards, such as the performance of the cast, especially Brie Larson. She is Captain Marvel. Samuel L. Jackson is in this film, so is Greg Coulson. And they all did a good job in this film. The films in the movie is pretty much forgettable, but where this movie really shines is that even this late in the MCU, you can still make a compelling solo film, as this movie takes place in the 1990s. And not only that, but I think it did a lot of things well here. Could this film been better? Yeah, but for a film that came out a month before Avengers Endgame and still get the amount of credit that it has to be some kind of accomplishment, in my opinion. At the number 11 spot is Doctor Strange. Who would ever thought we would have gotten a film like this in MCU? This introduced magic in this universe. Not only that, Benedict Cumberbatch does a great job as Doctor Strange. This film is interesting for me because it took things in a new direction. We explored the mystical side of the MCU, and we learned a lot about this character. I think what this film really does well is that it reminds me a lot of the film Inception, like I said beforehand. And there are several aspects throughout this movie that's just visually beautiful to look at. Is this one of the better films of Phase 3? Yes, I think it is. Even though I didn't like the general overall story, I like this film enough in fact to put it at number 11. Yeah, now we're getting the most interesting bits of this video. At number 10 is Spider-Man Far From Home. There are a lot of reasons I like this movie. We see Peter Parker dealing with the death of his mentor, Tony Stark. We see him dealing with Mysterio, struggling to come to terms with telling his love MJ how he feels about her. The action, the amazing acting from Jake Gyllenhaal playing Mysterio. It all's come together nicely. Besides, this is just a simple storytelling after the craziness that was Avengers Endgame and Infinity War. And I really have to say is that this movie does a great job just telling that simplified story. The ending was just great with the whole world finding out who Spider-Man is. Spoilers. And not only that, we really find out what kind of person Peter Parker really is without Tony Stark being there. This is like, it's not a coming of age tale, but it's a tale of where Peter Parker is in his life at this point in time. At number 9 is The Avengers. This movie is a reason we saw other cinematic universes, such as the DCEU, showing with their own universe. This film is one of the best superhero films of all time. It is a great film to look at even if you're not a comic book fan. And the acting in this film is just amazing. Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, Thor, Black Widow, Hawkeye, they all come together to stop Loki. And not only that, but they have fighting between them, especially the fight between Iron Man and Thor, or the fighting between Captain America and Iron Man, their banter. And this is easily seen as just a fantastic film. I love this movie still to this day. This was the best Avengers film up to this point. And the mere fact that it all worked out. This movie kind of went in a completely different way, and we would have never gotten all the amazing films after this one. But one thing I do have to say is that mid-credit scene with Thanos is just great to look at. And this film is certainly a great time let's just say I have a great time every time I watch it. At number 8 is Thor Ragnarok. Now, there's a reason this film is above the Avengers. It's because for a long time I wanted a proper Thor film, and we finally got in this movie here. It has some amazing acting from Tom Hiddleston, Chris Hemsworth, Jeff Goldblum, Tessa Thompson, Mark Ruffalo, Anthony Hopkins for that short role he had. And even Benedict Cumberbatch makes a small appearance in this film as Doctor Strange. What made this film real interesting is the banter between Hulk and Thor. The story was better than the first two Hulk films. The villain was very interesting. And it was the end of Asgard as we knew it. Plus, Thor had gotten a new look, a new attitude. Especially, he just saved the day once again. And thankfully, they got rid of Jane. I really couldn't stand her. But what this plot really shows, the story of this movie, is that even when Thor is in a tight situation, he still finds a way to come out on top. At the number 7 spot is Guardians of the Galaxy. I have to say, this is one of the most entertaining films of Phase 2. It is a great film to watch. It's funny. The action is great. Even the characters are very interesting. Who would have thought a raccoon in a tree would have been profitable at the box office? This movie is just amazing to me. And when I first saw the movie, I was just blown away about the awesome acting for Chris Pratt. And there are a lot of things right about this film. Drax is an interesting character. So is Gamora, Raccoon, Groot. This film is easily one of the better movies that I've seen in the last few years. Is it perfect? No, but I think there is a lot of great things I enjoy mainly about this film. From the cast to the music to even the action scenes. Even the story was very compelling. If you somehow never seen this scene, check it out because it is certainly a great film. Coming in at number 6 is Black Panther. This film right here is really what got me invested into the character. After making his appearance in Civil War, Black Panther here, it's not an origin story per se. It's about King T'Challa finding his place in Wakanda. This is a great film visually. The story is amazing. The acting is superb. We learn a lot about King T'Challa in this film. Chadwick Boseman was a perfect casting choice. And this film right here easily is one of the best films of Phase 3. Now, while this film has some mistakes, it's definitely a film you can watch and have a great time with. Culturally, this film was great back when it came out because there hasn't been many black superhero origin films per se. Even though this ain't an origin film, what I'm trying to say is that it's been few and far between. One thing I do have to say though is that while this film is great by itself, it certainly is something to experience if you've never seen this film. At the number 5 spot is Iron Man. This film here is what started the MCU. It was a great way for this cinematic universe to kick off because it led to all these Avenger films and movies a lot of us as kids never thought we'd see. But man, they really knocked out the park with this. With the amazing acting of Robert Downey Jr. playing Tony Stark, Terrence Howard, Jeff Bridges. This film, while it's a simple origin story, it really laid the foundation what the MCU will end up becoming. Plus, Tony Stark is one of the most beloved characters from the MCU. And not only that, this This film could have went a completely different way. It could have been a failure and the MCU would never happen. But they knocked out the park with this because Iron Man is a B-list character from the comics. So for them to turn him into a megastar, especially at the time when superhero movies weren't as big as they were back then, and some of them actually were struggling before this film came out. So this film changed the game in terms of not only just cinematic universes, but the superhero films that we have gotten ever since this film came out. I still love this film today. It's the best Iron Man out of the three, obviously. And this is a character you really appreciate, especially after everything Iron Man went through. Not only just this film, but in films like down the line. Coming in at number 4 is Captain America Civil War. This might as well have been retitled Avengers 2.5 because just about almost all the Avengers are in this film. From Iron Man to Captain America to Scarlet Witch to Vision, everybody does their part in this film. And it's certainly one of the best films of Phase 3. The fighting between Captain America and Iron Man was great, especially at the end. Plus, this film will lead into bigger things after this movie was over. There's certainly a lot of great things to be had here. This was directed by Russo brothers, who makes just great work every time they work on a Marvel film. And not only that, we really see a disagreement that Tony Stark and Steve Rogers have with each other. It's certainly a film that I think everybody can enjoy, especially if you like comic books. You don't even have to like comic books to enjoy a film like this. This is a popcorn-esque film that I would recommend to people. And I enjoy it so much, it's the reason why it's number 4 on my list. At the number 3 spot is Captain America the Winter Soldier. Yes, this is the film that really did a lot for me. It was a fantastic film. Captain America is uncovering a conspiracy. There's Black Widow, there's Nick Fury. And I really like how this film is different than the other MCU films prior. Obviously, this was the first film directed by the Russo brothers. They did a fantastic job with this movie. I love a lot of things about the film, such as the fighting, the music, the acting. A lot of things about this film was great. Captain America is a man who will never compromise the person who he is. So when he sees conspiracies and all that going on, then he takes it up to himself to change things. Seriously, this is, without question, my favorite film of Phase 2, and that's why it's number 3 on my list. Coming in at number 2 is Avengers Endgame. This is certainly one of the most entertaining comic book films I've seen in a long time. I love how a lot of character arcs come to a close here. Iron Man and Black Widow dying was such a sad thing to see in the film. I'm glad Captain America got his happy ending with Peggy at the end of this film. And not only that, but Thanos finally is defeated. This film is such a cinematic experience. I still remember to this day going to movie theaters and having a great time watching this film. It's a reason this movie is the highest grossing film of all time. And this movie is very great to watch. I mean, it was an end for a lot of our characters here that we won't see in the MCU anytime soon. And I like how the whole story arc just completed over a 22 film, arc, if you will. Nonetheless, though, this movie is very great. It's entertaining, and it's a film not to be forgotten for a very long time. And last but not least, at number 1 is Avengers Infinity War. For a long time, debated whether this film was better than Endgame, but in my opinion, I think it is. When you have the Avengers team up with the Guardians of the Galaxy take on Thanos, then you have one of the most compelling comic book films of quite some time. I love the story in this film. The fighting was great to watch. And it really was like the beginning and end for all these characters. And the fact that when Thanos won at the end, it was completely left field. I talked to people over the last, 2 years this film been out, and they saying that was the most compelling film to end a cliffhanger like that with the snap happening. And it really made you realize that this was pop culture we're talking about. Where people back in the 1970s had Star Wars to talk about, nowadays we have the Avengers films to talk about. This is pop culture really at its finest when a group of people come together and talk about such an awesome film like this. I love this movie. It wasn't too long ago I watched this film, and it's still number one in my opinion. This movie does a lot of things well. The casting of Josh Brolin being Thanos was awesome. And it certainly is a very entertaining movie. And there you have it. My top 23 MCU films ranked of all time from worst to best. You know, originally I was never going to do this video because it would take too long. And I tell you guys right now that this video took me a long time to make. I appreciate each and every one of you for watching this video because I took a lot of time and effort making this video happen. I mean, in a normal world, this video probably wouldn't existed, but I'm glad I actually got around to doing this. Now, will Black Widow come in theaters in November? I hope so. Only because I want to see how that film turns out. But nonetheless, thank you all for subscribing to my channel and viewing this amazing video. It took a long time to make, but it certainly was worth the effort. Alright, leave your comments down below in the section. Let me know what is your best films from the MCU ranked from worst to best. Let me know in the comments. Alright, this is Slim Guy 172 saying peace out.